It's time for listener mail. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. That is Matt, as always, behind the camera. I am Ben, that's Agent Scully on my left, which makes this stuff they don't want you to know. It's been a while since Matt and I did a listener mail episode, so we went through some of your emails and some of your YouTube comments, and we'd like to address them directly on the show today. Let's start with Ed Cooper. Ed, you wrote to us and said that the Car Conspiracies Digging Deeper episode was interesting to you when we talked about the Pavement conspiracy theory, which my Car Stuff co-host Scott Benjamin raised. The idea that there is some sort of miracle pavement that doesn't have potholes or the same vulnerabilities that other conventional pavement has. And you specifically mentioned the town of Texarkana, Arkansas, and you said that you believe downtown there is a paved area with a sign that has the year this pavement was laid and the fact that there are no potholes in it. We'd love it if other people could respond, maybe somebody in Arkansas or who has been to Texarkana, send us a picture if you can, and we'll put it on the air. Next up, also email, we received a letter from Brandon Langstrom. Brandon, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly because you did ask for a shout out, and guess what? This is it. Brandon, you also asked us if we would consider doing episodes on religion. You specifically asked us about the Old and New Testament, which I believe you refer to as the most popular religious text. And you specifically wanted to know how religions are used to control society and why so many religions around the world have the same backbone of a story, the same myths. It's an interesting idea, and we want to throw this to the rest of the listeners. Now, we're already on the hook for a Scientology series, which we are going to examine. That is good news. We'll see if we go to court over that one, but I guess this is what Matt and I signed up for. And you too. The most important thing that we can do at this point, before we go into any religious episode there, is to recommend a book called Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell is a mythologist, and he examines the same thing you're talking about, Brandon, the idea that there is a commonality between so many creation myths and religious stories. So kind of a Venn diagram there, right? What's the central thing? Joseph Campbell tries to find it in his books. Hero with 1,000 Faces is like if his bibliography were an album, Hero with 1,000 Faces would be the radio-friendly single. So check that out, and if you like that, look at his other books as well. And again, all the listeners, let us know if you'd like us to cover a religion, and if so, which. Now, we're not going to do anything that denigrates somebody's personal beliefs, but we are glad to examine specifics if you have a good one for us. Next up, Dan Zuck. Dan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. There wasn't an umlaut or anything there, but I am kind of winging it. Dan, you wrote in and mentioned a couple of interesting things to us, both of which were new to Matt and I. One, you mentioned something called the Koreshan Unity. Now, we haven't dug into this. We'd like to hear more about this idea, what it is specifically. Second, you mentioned Wilbert Smith, the builder of what you said was Canada's only, and perhaps the world's only, publicly acknowledged UFO tracking base. And you also did something that we really enjoy. You guys, Dan put in, here's where it gets crazy, in part of his email. And you would think that after the years that we've been doing this, we would get sick of it. No, we love it every time. It's weird. So we're definitely going to dig into this. On a side note, Dan, you might find this interesting. When Matt and I did our live Google Hangout, we were asked to contact Paul Hellyer and follow up on some of his information about UFO disclosure. We did. And Paul Hellyer wrote back, and he has a new book coming out. So that is the book that we would recommend to you if you're interested in this and if you haven't already read it. And in the meantime, we will look into Wilbur Smith. Next up, Paul Thomas, you requested a couple of things. First, you responded to our series on magic and the question of whether or not there are underlying scientific principles. and you suggested that we look into the topic of metaphysics, which is interesting to us, and we're wondering, for the rest of the listeners, is there something specific about metaphysics that you guys would like us to delve deeper into? Paul Thomas, you also requested a shout out to your Twitter handle, which is @TheBlueHQ. That's Blue BLU, so the BLU HQ. If you guys are still thinking about Brandon Langstrom's earlier question about religions, then you might find this listener feedback interesting as well. Rusty Shackelford, you wrote to us asking about why so many religions around the world have a story of a deluge or a great flood. That is an excellent question. That is something that I have wondered about for years. And it's weird because you do see it in a lot of religions. Do you guys want us to check it out? Let us know. Just a couple of quick ones too before we go. So Democracy 420 on YouTube writes in to say that there's a head shop that he knows of, which is a front company. This is responding to our front company series, that's owned by an ex-CIA agent who is laundering money for something, somewhere, who knows. I thought it was interesting, both because of your name and because it was a head shop. So be careful, especially if you shop there. Tony Z. Styles writes in to say that Anonymous itself may be a controlled front of something else. Now, we've heard this idea before. When we did our series on Anonymous, people responded, and quite a few people, a surprising amount of people, said that Anonymous was a controlled opposition group. You know, the illusion of dissent, one which is carefully managed. We're interested in hearing about that in more detail. Now, we stayed a little bit away from Anonymous for a while because we wanted to see how it all shook out. But if you guys want us to dive back into it, then we are more than ready. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much for watching and sticking with us for another week. If you have some listener mail you'd like to write to us, our address is conspiracy@discovery.com. If you're a Facebooker, one who books the face, then you can find us. We are Conspiracy Stuff. And if you are on Twitter, then we're always on Twitter as well. Let's see, do we have any other social media stuff? I think that's it. That's it, yeah? Okay, Matt's nodding in the affirmative, which means that we are ready to go out for this week. So, as always, since you stuck with us till the end of the video, we'll give you a little spoiler for next week's series. Are you ready? Ancient Aliens. Mars.